Forkast News is your gateway to all things blockchain. We do the deep dive and the due diligence on the blockchain projects and platforms that matter, because we aim to be the most reliable source of intellectual discourse and insight that inform, educate, and bridge the gap between the blockchain industry and the mainstream. Welcome to In Conversation With. In Shanghai, I'm Forkast News Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. Well, blockchain as a technology continues to evolve, and so too does the industry. If you think about it, from Bitcoin, which proved peer-to-peer transactions, to Ethereum, which applied smart contracts to these transactions, so too was born other blockchain platforms with its own unique characteristics and applications. And so we find ourselves here. One of those blockchain platforms was born in 2014, Neo, started as Ant shares, evolved into Neo, and it is one of those blockchain technology platforms that is really evolving in this space. To understand that a little bit better, to understand China, to understand how all of these puzzle pieces fit together, we sit down now with Hongfei. He is co-founder of Neo. Back in 2014 with Eric Zhang. You two came together and you saw the potential of blockchain technology for China. What inspired you to participate in this industry?
First, it's great to be talking with you here, and you did a very good summary for Neo, maybe better than me. We were inspired by a couple of things. The first one is definitely Bitcoin. Most of the blockchain projects are inspired by Bitcoin. I came across Bitcoin fairly early in 2011, and I instantly fall in love with it. And then we are inspired by a crowdfunding activity back to 2013. There's one guy, he's from China. He's a PhD candidate. He planned to do a ASIC miner, the most advanced chip to mine Bitcoin.
Yes.
And he did the crowdfunding on a forum. Nobody knows who he is. He just posted a Bitcoin address and asked for donation. And after a few months, he made it. He shipped the ASIC mining machine to those so-called investors or supporters. So we are inspired by Bitcoin technology, by the crowdfunding event, the activity. So we decided to invent a blockchain. Back to that time, there's no such word. We are not calling it blockchain, we call it a system that's empowered by Bitcoin technology to facilitate crowdfunding. So we used, at our deck, we said this is a system with Bitcoin plus Kickstarter plus NASDAQ. So that's our original vision. And if you ask me now, what is the simplest way to explain what is Neo? I would say Neo is the digital asset protocol.
The digital asset protocol. And so for those who are really new to the space, what does that even mean?
You can imagine in the future, we were in China, in Shanghai, we are already almost in a cashless society. I never touched a coin or any cash for like half a year. I never used
I experienced the same
cash.
thing. I have not broken out my cash one time. It's all done by WeChat or Alipay.
Yes, and you can say that most of the assets today, the physical asset or the asset you kept at financial institutions will be digitized in the future, definitely. So every asset will be digitized. And the digital asset protocol, NEO, will be used for that purpose.
Okay, so if I could understand it better, it's the digital representation of everything I hold valuable in the physical space. For example, my house, maybe my car, maybe my jewelry. Stocks or bonds.
Maybe your personal data.
Personal data.
That's also possible. If you want to share it with some third party, you can do that. But you can make sure that they are used for certain purpose, and it will be audited, and it will be recorded on the blockchain, and you probably will get paid that, for sharing your data.
That's really interesting.
With your own consent.
Especially
Definitely, yes.
in this digital space of ours, where a lot of content creators are creating IP
Yeah.
that right now is hard to commoditize because
Yes.
of piracy and dilution and oversharing.
And lots of intermediaries.
Exactly.
The barrier is really
the
high.
third parties,
Yes.
right, that take their cut.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that potentially at some point, my IP, my personal data, beyond all the physical assets, things that I can hold a value, that can be digitized.
Yeah.
Or a digital asset that can be
Yes, in the digital
held.
asset age, so we will have a bigger market for everything. So in a very privative society, the market is really slow. You only trade like living goods, your food, maybe clothes. But with the development of human society, we saw a bigger market. And I can imagine we will see an even bigger market in the future.
As a Chinese citizen in 2011, when you saw the potential of this, before you even created this platform, what was the current state of things in China that you really saw the potential of applying this technology to?
In 2011, it's just out of my pure personal interest.
Yeah.
I just interested in the project, in the technology. And alongside the way, I realized the technology is really has a great potential to change the human society. So we coined the word smart economy. So we believe we're moving from today's industrial economy to a smart economy, where everything is digitized, where computer languages can be used to manage those digitized assets, and everything is built on a distributed system that can preserve the privacy and also reliable because it's distributed.
These are universal goals that we all have.
Yes.
In this current state of the conversation, however, we are really mired in US-China trade wars, in
yes.
suspicion. And where does technology lie in this conversation?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
I would say technology itself is boundless. There's no nationality of a certain technology, especially in the blockchain industry. One of the principles of especially public blockchains is almost everything are open sourced, so we can learn from each other. That's also why the blockchain industry is moving so fast. Besides of the jurisdictional or geographical boundaries, there exists another dimension of like organization or group of people. I think we at the blockchain industry, we're living in that dimension.
Yeah.
We're not living on within the geographic boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's also the beauty of this industry, why I like it. Yeah.
It's truly decentralized, and so the team is not just here. It's around the globe.
It's around the globe, yeah.
And that's important to your structure, how and why.
Definitely. I was asked a question like half an hour before by a developer because we're doing a community assembly here. We have about 20 to 30 mostly developers from every corner of the world, from Brazil, from Switzerland, from US, from Shanghai, and they're gathering together, discussing a lot of technical topics. So one topic is, why do we need different application of NEO, implementation of NEO? So we have NEO is protocol, but with different implementations. There's one. There can be a bug in one application, but if everyone uses the same application, same software, it will defeat the meaning of decentralization. So we need a variety. In the development of NEO, during the process, we have different input from many cultural background, many technical background. I think it's crucial to a new such a decentralized project.
That consensus mechanism exists right now, and people are becoming a little bit more familiar with it. That consensus governance is important. How do you ensure, though, that the regulators are also involved, the different governments are also involved, or is that almost an impossible task? Or is that almost an adversarial task?
I wouldn't say it's impossible. I would describe it as it's a tough job, because the old regulations are made according to the old scenarios, with the old technologies, on top of the old infrastructures. But we're doing something completely different. The old model is heavily relied on trusted third parties. So those third parties has to be strictly regulated. But with the new technology, we are trying to build a trust by technology, not by like the traditional trust model. So the regulation should change. But we're in the process of it. The regulators need to understand the technology first, and they need to understand that we're not bad people. We're not trying to disrupt everything. We're just trying to build a better system.
That's a tough line that not a lot of people are accepting. The one thing that's happening in China is that there is incredible innovation here, but obviously it also must abide by the government initiatives and the policy initiatives,
yes, sure,
right?
yeah.
So how do you balance that?
NEO is a pretty globalized operation. The new foundation is registered in Singapore, so it's under the law of Singapore. And we have most of the core developers are actually not from China. Eric definitely is lives in China.
Eric Zhang is your
lives in
developer,
China.
co-founder.
He's a co-founder, developer, and core developer. And other core developer, we have about a dozen core developers. 10 or 9 out of them are actually not Chinese citizen, doesn't speak Chinese, so they are communicating with each other in English. So it's a very international team.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons. The other one is those applications, decentralized applications. Most of them are not in China. They are from Brazil, from other Japan, Korea, other places.
The characteristic of NEO is also very interesting in that KYC is important. Living within the regulatory framework is also really important. And we've seen this actually evolve into other blockchain protocols and also other blockchain projects that also see the importance of regulatory guidance. You want to make sure that you're on the side of the regulators. Otherwise, they could shut you down.
Yeah, in China, we don't do gatherings and meetings to promote the token, to persuade people to invest in our token. We never did that.
That's a no-no here.
That's a no-no here. Chinese regulators does not like those speculative markets, speculative practice.
Yeah.
So ICO and cryptocurrency exchange are not allowed to operate in mainland China.
And so how do you get a global community to take up NEO tokens or even people in the Chinese community in China?
Actually, we don't promote that.
You don't
we don't marketing NEO as an investment opportunity or an investment vehicle. If you follow our Twitter, if you follow all the marketing events efforts we did, we're merely pushing the technology. We're talking about the vision, talking about how blockchain technology can be used for real business. We're not trying to invent a new token for people to buy.
And that's part of the tension that exists because you need the token. Obviously, it is
Sure.
the underlying functionality of the platform.
Yeah.
It is the how people are able to transact.
Yeah, you need the economic model to work, to make the public blockchain to work.
And so, help me understand and help our audience understand. In spite of the environment in which China says ICOs are banned, and yet blockchain technology is still very much
Yeah, it's
encouraged.
encouraged,
How are you able to still function? Because you, at the end of the day, still have a token.
Yeah, we have a token. I would say we are pretty lucky. We are funded by the community very early, way early than the Chinese regulators say it's not allowed. First of all, we are funded by the community, and then we did a give back plan. So we informed all the sponsors or the supporters. We said we will give back the amount of money you gave us with no other conditions. So it's completely out of goodwill. We did that first. And second, we have the NEOS token already had a pretty big market cap. So we have sufficient fund to maintain the operation. Currently, Neo Foundation manages multi-millions of assets. We're managing multi-millions of assets, so we're financially well funded. Yeah.
Now you're changing to Neo 3. Tell us a little bit about this. Why is the developer community interested in it? And then you heard from your community as well, who's also asking, why do we need to change? So what is it about iterating now to a new platform? Because from what I understand, it's a completely new protocol.
Yeah, it's not completely new protocol. It's a completely new architecture. Yeah,
Okay.
The architecture is different, so it won't be completely compatible. But your asset will still be there, so you will not lose money. Why we are doing this is because alongside the way we learn many lessons. We know something should be designed this way or that way, so we try to make things right for the new version, and we figure out a smooth way to upgrade from the older version to a not incompatible new version. That's through a protocol called cross-chain protocol or interoperability protocol. So Neo 2 and Neo 3 will be both connect to you can call it a hub. So the asset from Neo 2 can be transferred to Neo 3 smoothly. So Neo 2 and Neo 3 will be running simultaneously for a while.
Yeah.
And then when people are confident with the new architecture, then we will urge users migrate from Neo 2 to Neo 3.
What is about Neo 3 that's different from Neo 2?
First, under the hood, the architecture is different. That means it will be more stable. You will have better. It will have better performance. So that's underlying technology. And then we have new functionalities. There are three major new functionalities. The Oracle. We will have a built-in Oracle function. That means a smart contract can directly access internet content within the smart contract itself. They can visit a website. It's not doable within current blockchain designs.
Okay, so give me a real-world example of
Like
how...
you can read the index of Nasdaq. You can tell what the price of let's say a Bitcoin is, and then you can do some arbitrage, or you can do some collateral, things like that. Decentralized finance.
Got it,
Yeah,
got
so
it.
that's the first new feature. The second new feature is Neo ID. Neo ID is meant to be used to do KYC, AML, to to build a reputation system on top of that, so you can link your identity within the physical world to the blockchain world. And the third feature is NewFS. I'm really excited by NewFS. This is a distributed file system. So you can directly save big files like a video to a distributed file system that is linked with the blockchain. You cannot do that within today's existing blockchains.
So this could really create or lower the cost for a lot of real-world businesses
yes, it
out there.
will dramatically lower the cost. Saving data on blockchain is very expensive.
Yeah.
It's extremely expensive. Yeah, it will bring the cost down to 1% or maybe even lower than that.
So right now, anyone who uses cloud knows how sometimes as your data sets and your data files grow, your cloud subscription fees also exponentially grow with that.
Yeah.
What if they were to flip to a decentralized cloud sharing? How does that?
Eventually, I think it will be cheaper than Google Drive or Dropbox or other centralized storage services.
There's certainly other blockchain protocols that are also working on this as well.
Yes.
But they're shifting the narrative to cloud-based. How is that also helping shift the business logic for companies not only in China but globally?
To beat the competitors, to beat the giants, you cannot just do the same thing and be a little bit better. You have to do it in a complete way and be much, much better. So the way distributed storage works is if you are an ordinary user, you can share the storage with your laptop. You can share the storage maybe with your phone. And with 5G, it will be very fast. And the bandwidth cost is really low. So it will be more like a shared storage system, like Uber, like any other shared economy.
Yeah. I want to also have you help me understand the incubator effect that's happening in China. As you travel globally, as I do, what is your sense of how technology is being incubated in Europe and in the US, and why China might be different for better or worse?
Let me think about it. I think the Chinese government is more active in supporting technical companies, startups, not by directly subsidizing them, but indirectly. Like the Chinese government will build a industry park, so-called. This is NGD's office in Shanghai. We are in a kind of industrial park, and they have special taxation, special human resource policies within those industry park. So that's the way how Chinese government support tech startups. In US, I think it's more a market driven. It's sponsored by venture capitalists, by the private sector. I don't know about Europe. I don't have a very clear idea about Europe, actually. Yeah.
How important is the environment itself, right? I guess what I'm trying to understand is it's not just blockchain alone. I mean, you mentioned it already. You're talking about cloud. You talked about 5G.
Yeah.
Blockchain plus all of these things is really what's happening in concert together in a different way. How are you also adopting blockchain to other technologies here in China? Are you the only one? And are other technology
Sure,
doing that?
That's a great question. From 2011 or from 2009, from the year that Bitcoin was invented, to 2015, I would say that's the phase of coins. A lot of projects call them this coin, Litecoin, Namecoin, a lot of different coins. And then from 2015 or maybe 2016 to now, present, 2019, or maybe even next year, is the phase of chains. We saw a lot of chains, this chain, that chain, a lot of chains. But the next phase, I believe, is, I call it next generation internet. That's a term also used by the European Commission to describe the next computational architecture of internet. And there are many projects working on that direction. For example, I was in Berlin 2 weeks ago attending the Web3 summit. They use the word Web3 to refer to the next generation internet. My understanding of next generation internet is it's a more user-centric. User have the control of their own data, and it's decentralized. The NEO is a digital asset protocol. And I'm also involved with another protocol called Ontology. Ontology is a digital identity protocol. And together with maybe distributed file storage protocol, these protocols will be the building blocks for the next generation internet. So the next generation internet applications will talk to different building blocks using, let's say, Ontology as a account or identity layer, use a NEO as a digital asset layer. So there will be different protocols working together.
That, the space has evolved so quickly, it's hard to catch up, because what you're talking about is right now, this chain and that chain, the protocols itself has unique characteristics. So we saw the Bitcoin, which is peer-to-peer transactions. Ethereum came along. NEO is often called the Ethereum of China because it takes this concept of smart contracts as it pertains to blockchains. Now what we're talking about is different protocols that have different unique characteristics, but in working with concert with each other, in the same way that blockchain might work with 5G, or work with cloud, or work with AI, or IoT. In the same way, it sounds like NEO would work with Ethereum,
Bitcoin
would work, right? And so you're talking about interoperability, which is certainly the hot topic of discussion right now. Why is that important to corporations, to companies, to professionals who are learning about this right now as they try to understand how to apply blockchain in their own industries?
If we look at the history of internet, it's not a global network at the first. It's like local networks. But eventually, people invented TCP/IP protocol and used TCP/IP to connect those networks together to form the internet. I believe same thing will happen within the blockchain world. We have different blockchains. They don't talk to each other right now. But we need a interoperability or cross-chain protocol to link them together, and it is crucial to those to enterprise because actually those enterprises can adopt. They don't like the idea of public blockchain, just like the companies in the old ages. They don't like the idea of internet. They like the idea of intranet, a network that they can control. So at this stage, I think most of the business will adopt a consulting or federated or private blockchains.
That's a great way to put it. Intranet is private. Internet is public. So in the same way, private blockchain is an intranet, right? Blockchain architecture within your corporate structure that's garden-walled versus... But at the same time, they kind of need to talk to each other, right?
Yes. I just said before, we're doing a migration from Neo 2
Yes.
to Neo 3.
Yeah.
So that's evolved from you can say, blockchain A to blockchain B. So this model, this approach can also be used by the consulting private blockchains from those enterprises. They can someday in the future move their all the assets, smart contract from their private blockchain to a new public blockchain or merge with the existing public blockchain.
Do you think this could also happen from a sovereign point of view, from a regulatory point of view, that within each nation, you determine your own rules, but then you can still participate in public blockchain?
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely possible. That's exactly what we are designing. Yes.
That design also means that you have to be compliant
We have to be compliant
to regulatory realities.
Yes, we are working on a technical solution now, but after we figure out all the technical details, we need a governance model. We also need to make sure the governance model is compliant. I would like to say that I think probably we need an association, an independent entity to run that cross-chain protocol, to organize all the participating blockchains. And that organization will be very similar to WTO.
Yeah.
So that will be the free trade between different blockchains.
You envision a blockchain like WTO.
Yeah. An organization to coordinate all the efforts to make the blockchain interact with each other.
These conversations have already started. They're happening at G7,
Yeah.
G20, at OECD.
Yeah.
They're happening at regulatory IOSCO around the world, right? At the same time, there doesn't seem to be actual agreement as to the relevance sometimes of even cryptocurrency or blockchain, all the way up to complete embrace of blockchain technology. There's such a huge divide. Do you think we'll ever get there?
Eventually, human being will figure out a way to regulate things.
Do you think regulation is important?
I think it's important. I do think it's important. Self-regulation is not always the best practice. Sometimes we need a certain level of regulation, but it has to be transparent, has to be auditable, so people will do what you did to regulate. Yeah.
So it's interesting because you're Shanghai-based, you're front-facing to China, you are taking a look at the regulatory landscape, and you're making sure you're compliant here. Your community leaders in Brazil are doing that in Brazil.
Yes.
Regulatory compliance to Brazilian rules of governance.
Yeah.
They're doing that in Spain. They're doing that in the US.
Yeah.
These are all very different
Very
environments.
different, yeah. But,
how does this balance out?
Actually, we do not need to really focus on to concern a lot about the regulations, because the major job we are doing is not doing a business. We are building the infrastructure.
The technology
We are
itself.
building the technology itself. It's
But
open sourced, so it's not our It's not our task to make sure a decentralized application is compliant in their country. It's the developer of the
Got it.
dApps task to make sure it's
So from what I understand, you're simply creating the highway.
yeah, we're creating the
And if you drive the car and the highway goes into a different
exactly
country or state with different rules,
Exactly.
then you must comply there.
yes
But you're simply building the highway.
correct yes
Okay, I get it.
yeah
I
we're
get
building
it.
the OS
You're building the OS. The OS also is important to not only creating a community and an ecosystem that really welcomes the developers for the dApps, but at some point you also have to prove your point to corporates in the real world who are conducting business.
Yeah.
If they can't see why they want to use any of these protocols, whether it be you, whether it be Ethereum, whether it be Bitcoin, whether it be whoever, there's myriad blockchains out there, then where does this leave the industry?
You're absolutely right. We need a real-world adoption showcase for the blockchain, but we're not there yet. We're still at a very early stage. I think the road you just said we're building the road. The road is not well built yet. The road probably is okay, but we don't have signs. We don't have menus to how to drive. We don't have directions. We don't have maps. So we are building maybe 60% of all the infrastructure. I believe we're still at least 2 years away from mass adoption for real large-scale, global-scale business adoption.
Proof of concept is huge. Everybody is watching on the sidelines right now.
Yeah.
They're saying, this is great. This could be potentially great for my business, but it hasn't been proven yet. Who is proving it right now in China?
I'd love to be one of them to prove that blockchain will be the underlying technology infrastructure for the future internet. Yeah, I'm doing that, not just by working on NEO, but also I have a private company. I funded a private company called OnChain also in Shanghai. So we are also working with Chinese enterprises to do some private consulting blockchains and even some local governments to do some proof of concept.
So on-chain is very interesting in that it is backed amongst its investors as Sequoia China and also Fosun.
Yes.
Fosun, huge Chinese conglomerate with interests in entertainment, travel. They even own an Australian oil company, Rock Oil.
And a British soccer team.
And they own a British soccer team. How do these industries help prove that point? What is Fosun? Why is Fosun one of the main investors in on-chain? What do they see in blockchain technology that they want to apply into all the different verticals of their businesses?
I think the reason why Fosun invested in us so early is because they have a good diversity of businesses in different countries. They own the Club Med, the hotel chain, they are a resort chain, they own some insurance company in Europe, banks, also pharmaceutical companies, so all sorts of things.
Yes.
So I think those business might give them some idea that blockchain can facilitate their business. So the investment department just talked to us, and finally the big boss, Mr. Guo, made the final decision to invest in us, and we kept a close relationship with them. We often discuss what can be used within Fosun's portfolios.
What is the most exciting thing that you're working on that you want to prove?
We're working on a point system. They have internal point system that will be used by many companies invested or control or with majority share by Fosun. So we're working on that.
By point system, you mean like loyalty points?
Like loyalty points.
Kind of.
It's not loyalty points. It's not meant to be used by customers.
I see. Okay.
But rather than their employees.
Oh, okay.
It's an internal loyalty system, a point system.
Interesting.
You can use that to purchase a service or good from within the group, within the Fosun group.
Employee benefits program.
Kind of that. Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Which, if you were to take it outside of a corporate, it would be very similar to loyalty points.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
You want to kind of create
Yeah, but-
leverage
yeah, we-
for your employees.
Yes,
It's a perk, it's
yeah,
a benefit.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And are you close?
What do you mean by close?
Are you close? Have you already implemented the system? Yeah.
Not yet. We're working on it. Yeah, yeah. It's not closed yet.
Okay. What do you think the emerging market trends when it comes to blockchain that's happening in China right now?
Emerging market. You mean geographically or
No,
like
no. I mean,
sections?
what do you think is burgeoning new that's happening in China right now that people are? Because you talked about it. First it was coins, then it was chains. What is the next thing that's happening in blockchain technology in China right now?
We're seeing a lot of fusion between blockchain technology and IoT.
Okay.
How to use blockchain to manage those like sensors, millions of sensors.
Yeah.
I also saw some interesting ideas about how 5G will change the blockchain game, and also some new breed of blockchain. They're not using the typical conventional blockchain data structure. They're using a different graphic data structure. Yeah. So
What does that mean? What do you mean by that?
so blockchain is a one block linked to another block
Yeah.
as a chain.
It's a ledger.
But they use DAG, DAG. So there will be like a graphic. I don't know how to describe it in English, in layman's word. So it's like a tangled chain, but eventually you will find the main chain. So there will be a single source of truth, a single source of history.
But it allows.
But it will be very fast. It will be very fast because transactions can be processed locally and eventually will be merged onto a main blockchain.
You're almost talking about edge computing, the same analogy. You know, you have the cloud, but instead of this huge pipeline, if that transaction only pertains to one specific conversation, that you'd still be able to do that, but still link back to the cloud. This is happening so fast.
Yes, it is.
It's happening at breakneck speeds. If there is one thing that you want people to understand about what's happening in China, what would it be?
Specifically, we are in a global age. Globalization is everywhere, especially in this industry, blockchain industry. So running a blockchain startup in China is actually at the very beginning it's tough. Your employees, your colleagues, they don't speak fluent English. There are cultural difference, some value difference, and the regulation in China is stricter than many countries. So at the very beginning, if you just look at it, you will think these are disadvantages. But I think we are lucky that we born in this age. Everything developed so fast. I just witnessed all the progress we achieved in the past almost 4 decades. I'm 39. So I'm really confident that in the long run, all these disadvantages will be translated into advantages. Chinese people are really good at building things, at engineering. We built big bridge, roads, networks, bullet railways. There's no doubt we'll be good at building blockchains, building the infrastructure for the next generation internet. So I'm really optimistic about the future.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this
Thank you so much.
conversation
Thank you.
and your insights.
Thanks.